Indulge me, I'm going to read a little bit of scripture this morning before I open us with a word of prayer. I'm going to read from Isaiah chapter 9. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them a light has shone. And then skipping down to verse 6. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end, on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness. From this time forth and forevermore, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. And then from Isaiah chapter 53. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And as one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. Let's pray. Father, thank you that you are a God who draws near. You are not a God who is far off. Your desire is for relationship with your children, and we thank you, Father, for making a way for that to even be possible. Thank you that you stepped into our mess, that you stepped into our flesh, that you breathed our air, you walked the sod, just so that we could be with you forever. We ask, Lord, that as we approach this holiday season, that you would remind us of all that you've done for us and all that you plan to do for those who belong to you. You are a God who keeps his promises, and we can see that clearly in Scripture through the birth of your Son. So we can trust, God, in your promise that you're coming again and that we will be with you forever. Be with us this morning as we begin this meeting. Father, help us to make decisions that honor and glorify you. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen. And let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I will now call to order the workshop meeting for December 19th, 2023. And we will begin with a review of our agenda for our January 4th meeting. Mr. Broski.
All right, good morning. I'd be remiss if I didn't say Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy New Year, Happy Holidays to everybody. I'd like to take credit for the poinsettias, but if I didn't point out that it was Sue, then I would be scolded. Certainly this time of year, a lot to rejoice. This particular meeting, traditionally, very short because the holidays are approaching. The January 4th agenda itself is very short. Also, with a small number of items because of the holidays. There's no student showcase. There's no, there are a couple of items that are there that you can read. So I want to take an opportunity. We did have two important events that occurred since our last meeting to bring forward. One is, Bonnie, if you can go ahead and put the first, and I'll go quickly through this. These are two very important items. Wanted to kind of point out to you a couple things that happened recently since our last meeting. One, school grades have been released by the state. Proud to say Clay County, wait a second here, okay. Clay County is an A school district once again. As a reminder, that's one of 16 districts in the state. It's important for us to realize that the way that this is done is through a formula that the state uses. If you look up at the chart, you can see the items that are used for each grade band. This year was an unusual year because remember, traditionally you have learning gains as part of the process. This year there were no learning gains as part of the process. We started a new curriculum, the BEST standards. There's a new way to assess called the FAST monitoring program. I'm proud to say that PM2, which is the mid-year data, we compared PM2 of this year to PM2 of last year. We've seen tremendous growth in most schools based on those two data items that we're looking at. We intensely focus on this because, you know, folks can say what they want, but the numbers don't lie relative to student achievement. Another point that I would like to kind of point out to you is that each year, one of the most maddening things about what we do is that the state changes the rules every year, right? So if you thought it was the same rules every year, you're sadly mistaken. It doesn't work that way. So in order to be an A school district, you needed a 68. This year, it was a 62 last year. You might say, well, what's different? So the state does modeling. They do reliability and validity studies on data across the state. This year was a different year because many of the elements that were used in order to determine school grades in the past were not available as they transfer to a new system this year. So this is true for this year, what you see on the screen. I guarantee you it'll be different next year. So imagine playing a game in which the rules change each and every year. Right, that's the scenario that you're in as a school district. That's essentially how they measure school grades. So how about this? These are facts. You know, I get my facts from the actual data itself, not from Facebook or anywhere else. Okay. Number 2 in the state of Florida for civics and U.S. history. So if you take all 67 school districts and you look at how they perform, Clay County, of those 67 that you see on the right-hand side in that picture, is number 2. We're actually number 1 in 7th grade civics. That's a statistical fact. It's not made up. It's data on the website. You can look it up yourself. 4th grade, 4th in science. So science is made up of 5th grade, 8th grade, and biology. Those are the metrics, 5, 8, and 10, that they assess students. That's 4th. So if you look at 67 counties in the state of Florida, ranks 4th, okay? In math, we're 9th out of 67, and in ELA, we are 12th. It's important to note that you have to use comparative data. It would seem to me that it's fair to compare people who have to play the same game together, because you're all under the same rules, right? You can't just look at the number itself. You have to look at how do you compare against other folks. Well, if you see that, that's a great record to stand on. Do I think we can improve? Of course. We work on that each and every day. Okay, you can actually do both at the same time. You can actually celebrate the accomplishments and things that you see on that screen at the same time that you're working for improvement. I'll never forget coming home as a young man and having a 94 on I did not like Spanish class, I'm going to confess. Okay? I came home with a 94, I thought I was a hot potato, and I showed it to my dad, and he said, hey, you know, you got 6 more points to go. That was his celebration. That's the family I grew up in. I get it. You want to improve. Being number 1 is always the goal, right? And so things are in place in order to get us there. And but first, you know, when you look at the actual school level, I did want to celebrate some schools that should be recognized for how they did. How about this? 93% of schools are an A or B school in Clay County. Middleburg High School, an A school for the first time since a young principal was there, and a young student was there also at Middleburg High School. Oakleaf High School, Ridgeview High School, both A schools this year. 24-point increase for Ridgeview High School. Keystone Heights, junior senior high school, an A school for the first time in a good number of years. 31-point increase. Green Cove, Lake Asbury Junior, both increased their scores to A's. Shadow Lawn, McCrae, Coppergate, all of that's an improvement. Now, are there things that need to improve? Yes. But by golly, you gotta look at the facts first before you start to work on those things that need to be improved. So what does it take? It takes three groups. It takes students, it takes teachers, and it also takes parents in the community. You know, I always point out the fact that that schools have students 14% of the hours in a year. Parents have them 86% of the time in a year. So we need our parents to engage with students academically and help out in that endeavor. So all kinds of plans are in place to do that, but good foundation, since they change the rules each year, you should really focus on the basics, because you never know what the rules will be as you go into testing season. This is our instructional vision. Remember, we focus on student engagement in the classroom, something that Ms. Hanson's brought up many times. We focus on demonstrating a knowledge of understanding. In other words, we assess students to figure out where they're at. It doesn't make sense to keep going if they don't understand. You got to backtrack and reteach. We want academic ownership. It's not how much the teacher knows, it's how much the student knows and the skills that they can perform. And we want rigorous instruction. You know, sometimes if you look at the actual work that students produce, is it strong enough? Is it tough enough in order to help students grow? Okay? How do we know that? We go in the classroom. You know, so far we have about 8,400 times that we've been in the classroom. We monitor that data. We see how teachers are doing. The reason why I always bring up you have to have comparative data is really simple. We all follow the same barriers, right? We all know that labor shortages are an issue, but they're an issue for every district. We all know that some of the legislation that's put in place and the things that we all have to confront, we're all on the same footing. When you compare apples to apples, Clay County School does well, but needs to always keep their eye on improvement. And we can do both at the same time. So I just wanted to give you a quick presentation. You can't be superintendent of schools, school grades get released, and you're not talking about it. As a board, you should celebrate that, okay? You should really celebrate that, because that really is a good record to run on. You can improve at the same time. The other thing I wanted to talk about was safety and security. We had a visit from the Office of Safe Schools, and I'm going to kind of work my way through this. School safety and security, what action steps have been taken? One, we met and trained everybody in July. I did the training myself personally for all administrators in the district related to safety and security. In July, we also created what we call the red book. So if you go to any school, there's a red book or a red binder that the principal has. Inside of there is all of the information which helps us track and ensure compliance to all safety regulations across the district. We recently had them come in. They reviewed all of those things. We conduct emergency drills twice a month. After each one of those emergency drills, there's an after-action report that's filed for purposes of compliance for the state. We then refine that process. We've started a security council, okay, that's there. On the security council sits not only law enforcement, but also our mental health professionals, our Office of Safe Schools, as well as our climate and culture department. All of them are at the table each month talking about safety and security. It's much more than just the police officer or the armed guard within the school itself. There's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes related to safety and security. So for the visit, okay, actually the Vice Chancellor himself came out and did the walkthroughs at the school. Went to 13 schools. This is a total surprise visit. There's no pre-whatever. They just show up. They don't tell you what schools they're going to. They don't none of that, right? It's kind of like, boom, we're here. Here we go. Let's all look. And what they found is we not only met but exceeded compliance standards. In fact, we got kudos for the organization of how we approach school safety through the processes that we put in place related to safety and security. Are you ever at 100% satisfaction on safety and security? The answer is no. Just like student achievement, just like parental communication or involvement, those will never ever be 100%. You should never be satisfied. So we continue to work on best practices. the Florida model, this is a big change starting January 1st. The state has changed the model from CSTAG to what's called the Florida model, okay? Totally different in their approach and how they deal with threat assessment and threat compliance and how we work this within the state of Florida. Mr. Vore, Mr. Mills, and the whole group have trained 250, maybe 254, I think, was on the list of people within our district to train the trainer model from the state. We've successfully completed all that. In fact, I send my, just about everything now, there's a document that's signed by superintendent attesting that you did it. Like, I send I attested that we've completed the training for each and every person that needs to be trained under the Florida model, which is a new model that's brought forward. We then monitor those students that have demonstrated a need to monitor through the threat management and threat protocols that are in place. So who's on this team of individuals? It's an administrator, it's a person in law enforcement, it's instructional people, and somebody from student services around the table each and every month. It's documented. There are students, of course, in need of help, okay? And we work on that and have a plan in order to do that. So it still includes a monthly review of school-based and district-based teams. One of my greatest frustrations is students that say things that they interpret as a joke. In today's world, there is no joke. Every single threat is taken just as that, and so sometimes it's really frustrating when the student says, I was just joking, and the parent just says, I know my child, he's just joking, okay? Newsflash, no such thing as a joke when it comes to threatening schools or threatening other people. So we continue to monitor this area, and I'm figuring since the Vice Chancellor came out himself, I would apprise you of what happened on his visit. So thank you so much for that. I have one other little tidbit of information. If you could pass this out, Ms. Watt. And so one of the things that the board had asked previously and said, hey, how do we, can we get a chart of information related to charter schools and how that money is distributed, and like how much money do charter schools get? So you can see Doc has produced, oh man, it's nice paper, Doc. You can afford the thick paper?
That's what I can.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, nice.
Not
Yeah.
very. Well, yes, I can.
Okay, I was a little concerned there budgetarily, we'd be able to. So one of the things that I've been asked for from the board is, hey, can you come up with a listing and how do you do the payments? So if you look at just the first one, which is St. John's Classical, the Fleming Island campus, then you see Orange Park, Lake Charter. So these are all of the charter schools. You can see the various sources of income, whether they're LCIF, the 1 mil for safety and security, sales tax, safe schools, FEFP or capital outlay funding. You can see the total payment by month. And I think the months might have gotten cut off on the first one, but you can kind of see by going down the column what the payment was to each one of those schools. So then you can go all the way to the right on that document. You can see projected budget, like how much at the end of the year will they have received in each one of those categories, and then you see the total at the bottom. So if you looked at this, just looking at the top school there, Fleming Island, you can see that the projected budget, keywords projected, okay, that's not, it might not be the exact number at the end of the year, but close to it. You see about $7.8 million at the end of that. So, board member had asked for that information, so I'm just providing that information to you. With that in mind, the agenda is really short. This will take me all about 10 minutes to kind of go through this.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
just so you know, the information on here, and David said it's projected. Everything is estimated. Each line has a different formula of how to distribute these funds. So it changes. Okay? Just wanted to.
And this is the estimation for 23, 24?
The payments,
22,
July through November, has been, we make these payments monthly, and it's based on estimated numbers right now. The state has not released any of our numbers from the final for last year, nor any information for the current year. So right now, we're just going off of their projected enrollment numbers. But again, each funding source has a unique allocation or calculation method, and once we get those numbers, it's updated to those actual numbers, the actual enrollment or per pupil allocation.
Can I just backtrack for 1 second? Speaking of just the new safety training protocols everybody's going through, I'm curious at the school level. I know when I was teaching, you hear kids, I don't think the teachers were well trained in deciphering what a real threat may be or may not be. What are we doing? Because, you know, you might have a kid that draws a picture of him shooting another kid on a piece of paper in art class, right? And then you've got kids who say things. How are teachers, and how do they get that information to the monthly meeting?
So here's how that works. The teacher would report it to the team.
Do they know what kind of things to report? Is there like
Yes.
a list?
So when they hear that, generally teachers will report everything that they hear and see. It's the job of the team then to decipher that and interpret whether or not it's a low, medium, or a high level of concern or unfounded. One of the things that was found in the old CSTAG model, which was essentially a 23-page document that people filled out, is people filled out the document for anything because nobody wanted to be responsible if they didn't report it or fill out the document, right? So 2 kids that are kindergartners on the playground, and they go like this to one another, and the teacher observes it, and then the teacher's like, oh my, I'm going to report this. We're going to fill out the 23-page document. Because it might be something serious, but it might not. It might be 2 5-year-olds playing on the playground, right? And therefore, is the difference between the Florida model and the CSTAG model is we believe that it provides for more interpretation and not just simply going through a process when things happen that are not truly a threat. Okay? And that's really hard to say because everybody wants to go the full Monty on anything.
And you may not.
And it may not be, but that's a great question.
I mean, that's my concern is, I don't even want to say common sense, but sometimes
yeah, you're absolutely right. We believe that the Florida
Yeah.
model allows common sense to prevail. How about that? Right? Whereas the previous model, the number that we reported, we believe is high because there was no way to decipher. It was just everybody filed a report because nobody wanted to be responsible for determining that. Now the training is such that there is a determination.
So do you believe that teachers will be more forthright in saying, hey, I saw something? Or?
I think the teachers will always report because they're trained and taught to report, and then this group would be the people that decipher that to interpret it, and I think that that's a step up.
Because they are actually they are the reason we would discover something, more likely. So.
Right, and then remember now, the group would have expertise in this, you know, and because the group's been trained, they have a leader that does that. Then there's a process, and it's very the actual statute, the state court rule, has a number of days. There's a timeline involved in it. Eventually, it goes from the team, the 4 people that you see there. The principal does not serve on the team. Principal is the first layer of review. Okay, so, you know, we're really tough to tell the principal you're not on the team. They're like, what do you mean? I'm always on the team. I'm the team, right? So it's usually going to be the assistant principal, okay? That then is reviewed by the principal. Then it's reviewed by the district. And And that's really what Ms. DeBoer's job is, right? Remember, when we formed that new position, because it's actually legislatively mandated, that is the purpose for her position, is to review each and every one. That's a great idea because you want consistency across the district, that they're all handled appropriately and equitably across the district, and it's her job to do that.
But if there was some kind of a problem, we don't have to wait to that 1 month to, like, it is something we're addressing continually?
So let's say that
Because you
it's,
say they meet once a month, but
no, they would have to meet by statute. They would have to meet within the 2 days
with,
of an
of
event,
the,
usually right away.
okay, that's
This is a
better.
group that has immediate action
Yeah,
within it.
yeah, all right,
Now, if a student is having difficulty, right, you would want to develop strategies or interventions to help that student. That's monitored monthly,
right,
and follow-up happens each
okay,
month.
all right.
Or if it needs to happen more often, it happens more often. So that's just part of the way of doing business in 2020.
Well, I'm just assuming if something serious happened, then
It's right away.
they would meet.
Right
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
Yeah, and in the presentation, the training they all got, they were given a list of like the top 10 warning signs and changes with a recommendation that they don't wait till the end of the day to report it, that
Yeah.
it's not, you don't wait till you're on your way out to the
Right.
parking lot, but
Because I had a lot of, I think this is a much better system. I had a lot of concerns about the old system that we had. I think what we're moving into is,
I think so. I think the state is, and even Sheriff Gutierrez, who is in charge of the MSD commission, kind of admits that perhaps under the old model, everybody would just simply report everything because nobody wanted to not report.
right, right.
Now you report it, and now there's a mechanism to actually find and substantiate the facts to it. And that's the difference between the two models.
That's all I had.
All right, so let's go through this. So we're going to recognize our Purple Star Schools of Distinction. So Discovery Oaks, Doctors Inlet, Oakleaf, Plantation, Oaks, Patterson, and Tynes all joined Fleming Island Elementary. Very proud of that fact. We also can have an update from our Ed First Citizens Advisory grouping. We are going to have a ceremonial signing for the CCA and CESPA contracts. Let me just say, this, very proud of the work that was done here, and the new compensation should be in the January 3rd paychecks with the retroactivity going back to the beginning of the year. I want to thank the board for your commitment to our employees. The past 4 years, 21 to 24, total increase of $23.7 million additional money went towards compensation. That is the greatest 4-year history in the history of Clay County Schools. The nearest one, 2014 to 21, to give you an idea, was $21 million, 7 years. We did better than that in a 4-year time frame when it comes to that. Support employees over the past 4 years, an additional $18.5 million in compensation. Now the key is, are we where we need to be? The answer is no. Okay, not even close. But when you're looking at a 3 to 4 year period, it's the highest ever. Okay, that's a fact. Ever in the history of Clay County Schools. Okay, so I applaud the board for that. So a veteran teacher, that one of the challenges was a veteran teacher with 18 plus years, which makes up about 34% of our teachers that are in that 18 and more, received 59% of the funding that we brought forward this year. So there was a decided by the board push towards veteran teachers, okay? When you look at that, a veteran teacher will see an increase of almost $2,500, okay, which is it everything that could be? No, of course not. But take a look at that. The board did a tremendous job in doing that. It's the highest ever. Okay, so can we do more? Of course. We're going to do more for our teachers because, quite frankly, they deserve it. We also increased compensation for critical shortage areas, ESE, school-based psychologist, $2,500. Bus drivers, we placed on a new salary schedule. Okay, drivers bringing in 10 years of experience. There is also a salary increase there of $1 to $4 per hour. Increase is the increase there for transportation. So the board has prioritized our bus drivers. Also, I saw on the news this morning, they were talking about minimum wage going up in the state of Florida in January 1st to, I forget the number that they said, like $12, $13. This board went to 15 2 years ago. So, we instantly jumped on that, and of course, that's important to know, because $1 is roughly almost $3 million. You're looking at compensation pieces there. We also increased technology specialist salary, because that's a high need area that you can't find people for. And so, on the vote yesterday, 97.3% of teachers voted yes for the contract. So I think that they look at it. I think sometimes when you have contractual information, there's confusion at first when it comes out. And I know that we'll do a better job and have more meetings related to all of the information so that the accurate information is brought forward. When you look at that, you should take two things away from the contracts. One, you provided the most compensation in history, 1857. If you want to go back there to that. Okay, so I'm very proud of the board. And I think, spending a little bit more time going page by page through the contract would be beneficial so that everybody kind of knows the rules instead of hearing from folks that don't read it or whatnot. I know that we got a couple emails related to it in which factually not correct. This is the first year that the state loosened the language allowing us to pay veteran teachers more than beginning teachers. Okay, every other year you couldn't do that by law. So you've done a tremendous job and you should be celebrated for it. So thank you so much. Okay, so minutes of the board meeting from our previous board meeting, our discipline hearings, and our workshop.
Will there be a student show or a school showcase
No.
this time? Okay.
No.
Didn't think so.
Remember,
Sure.
after this, I kind of laugh because if you watch what's happening in schools now, let me ask a question. How many people believe that students are in school right now and they're intensely focused on learning?
When's the date?
They don't even know.
Okay. How about
Well, wait,
this?
there are a number of students who are taking tests this morning.
No.
I think it's cool.
Junior high and high
Test.
school,
It's
so.
true.
They're all
Time of
taking,
year.
mine are taking
There are lots
semester
of test
exams right now.
takers this
Yeah.
year,
Well,
so.
that's
They may
true in
not be
secondary
learning,
school,
but they're showing what they
taking
learned.
exams. But when you watch like elementary school,
Nothing.
It's
oh my
polar
gosh,
express
all
day.
kinds
Yeah,
of
tomorrow,
stuff
yes.
happening there,
Today
right?
pajama day or tomorrow?
And you know what? That's the way it should be. Kids should have fun at school. When you get to secondary school, you try to earn credits. There's other stuff, and you got to do what you got to do in secondary. But golly, how about we have a little fun and have the Christmas spirit out there for young folks. And so I kind of look at it, that way.
I don't know, I think we've had the Grinch show up at some of our schools.
We did. We did.
They definitely
So,
showed themselves on Facebook.
The next item is approval of membership fees for Ms. Skipper for the Florida Conservative Coalition of School Board Members.
So are you the only conservative on this one?
I got a letter. I
So-
adopted, so they might be coming out. I don't know. Hold
So
tight.
and for the FSBA, we pay for the entire school board, correct?
We do.
But then I know that Ms. McKinnon had done a separate membership
Oh, I didn't realize that.
back, it was before, well, I replaced Ms. McKinnon. And she had been, there was another conservative school board at the time. Can't remember the name of it. But she had a separate membership.
I'm in the process of filling that application out as well, so I'm just glad to see that it's there, and we have a variety of options to get our professional development training from, so.
Is there not an option for the board to join?
I don't think at this time, because they're newer, so I could contact them and find out. But, I think it's individual at this moment.
And
I just finished
You
my
learn a lot
certified
about-
board membership with FSBA.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Ms. Fuller.
you
So
do learn
I
about a
was
lot of
born here,
networking in the
57
beginning.
years.
There's a lot of networking. You can find out what other counties are doing about
Right.
issues. It's really, really valuable to have, be able to get input from outside of our box, right?
Right,
Yeah.
professional organizations, professional development organizations are important.
Yeah.
And so I think it wouldn't be bad to have 2 memberships as a board. But that's what I was asking. I don't know if there's an opportunity for us as a board to have training through them, or if it's just individual board members.
Well, and here again, if there are 2 options, we would want to, I personally would want to find out if I could continue my membership with FSBA. Since
see
I'm
why
a
not.
certified board member in that area, and I do
It's just
have those
voluntary, it's optional, it's
interactions.
not,
Yeah, it's
so-
like an additional.
It's like an
It's not
additional-
a thing like you pick or choose.
like when I was an
either
English
or.
teacher, you
It's
could
not
join.
In the past, it had been. That's what I was referring to. I'm sorry, I wasn't aware
It's
of
like when
that.
you were teaching, I could join the National English Teacher Association and I could join the Science Association. So it's just
So it's optional.
options
That's what
for,
I was thinking. It would be valuable to have both.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so Ms. Skip will find out and provide information. So next is personnel consent agenda. Then we have elementary student out-of-state travel, followed by secondary students out-of-state travel. Then we have our early college program between the school board and St. John's River State College. You know that Orange Park and Middlebrook High have an early collegiate program for dual enrollment. We have about almost 1,300 students district-wide that participate in dual enrollment. Orange Park High and Middleburg have had much success with that. We have 38 students take advantage of free tuition, earn their AA before they get out of high school, which means they already have a college degree as a high school graduate. It's a great program, and this is our yearly update to that. Proposed allocation changes for 23-24. You can see very little change there due to the time frame of the year. Then we have our monthly financial reports, our budget amendments, and our deletion of items, which are standard items on a school board agenda. Then you have the bid award, which is still being updated at this point and should be up shortly. But this is for building code inspection and plan review services. Then next we have the appointments to Citizens Oversight Committee. We have the preliminary final for Middleburg High School restroom renovations. Then we have preliminary final for Clay High parking lot renovations. Followed by Orange Park Junior High HVAC. Then you have the educational facilities work plan. And I see that you were provided an additional paper copy of that. You know there's a 5-year work plan, projects that are done at each school. Anything you want to say about that, Brett?
Yes, so the first packet is what we submit to the state. We're required to submit the projects that we bring to you guys in July. As part of this whole process, we start in July with our 5-year plan, project list, it's tentative. We bring the final to you in September, and then the state opens up their portal and we're required to give them all the same information. So this is just a copy of what we submit to the state. The other spreadsheet is a copy of what we gave to you last time. It's the final that was approved. And then here's a copy of the work plan, which is what we give to the state. So this is anything that has changed from the final. Things that have come up, we get your approval, we give it to the state and get their approval as well.
Is this an order of like priority two?
So we do fiscal years July to July. So the first projects are carryover projects, so it's any projects that have started in early 23 that carried through the summer. We have to report the dollars that are spent on those projects in the new year. So like the first one, ancillary underground tank replacement. We'd started that project back in early '23. We had a purchase order cut for that. Some things came up, we said we want to make sure we allocate some more money for that. So we made sure we had $50,000 or $46,000 on that project line available.
Because I know sometimes some people will contact us and ask, hey, where are we at on the list of getting this fixed? Or
So
I
it
know
is.
it was approved, but it's been a while.
Yeah, it's in, if any of the schools have questions, they can certainly call us. We try to be as transparent with them as possible. Anything in the 23, 24 year is something we're working on. A lot of times we start with architects and engineers in September, and it's a process to get those drawings done, and then we have to bring those plans and drawings to you for approval, and then we go into the construction process. So sometimes if they're like, well, we saw it on the plan, should be usually starting soon, about this time of year, if it's a bigger project. But if it's a smaller one, yeah, just have the school call our facilities, and we'll let you know.
If you see it in the 23-24 column, by now these projects have fleshed out, as Bryce indicated. You did a tentative, and then we did the final. Projects have finished, projects have completed, we've recaptured balances, we have actual figures, we recapture those dollars, and sometimes we bring projects forward. So in the latest worksheet that has December on the top, the one that talked of work plan, you'll see the highlighted colors in 23-24. To answer your question, if the project's in 23-24, we're doing these projects. We're going to execute these projects this year. The little highlighted cream color there is just to indicate to you a change. Like, for example, if you'll see in security cameras, there might be 2 lines for that because we had a grant that came in and we're leveraging grant dollars. So everywhere you see the light highlighted shade in 23-24, that was either a dollar amount change, or we got an actual figure, or we moved a project forward and added that in. So as a result of recapturing dollars from closed projects. So when they see it in 23, we try to, even though it's a 5-year plan, we execute it annually based on revenue that's available in any type of emergency projects. We've had playground repair projects have surfaced, and we've moved some forward. We've moved forward all of our panic alarm alert projects for junior high. So by August 25, all junior and senior highs will have that system. So we recapture those dollars and we reallocate it accordingly. And so if you see the project in 23-24, the expectation is those will be executed. If they're not finished at the end of the year, then they roll into that top category that Bryce was talking about, which is the carryover project. We just carry over it from the year before so we can finish it out, recapture those dollars, and reallocate to projects. We try to move up the projects as fast as we can, and we do keep a list of worst first age-oriented things like playgrounds and gym floors and things that schools ask for all the time. But we do have a list for that, and we're constantly working on it.
And when you talk about grant, you're referring to the bond?
No, we're talking about the school safety grant that came in. We ended up getting about $567,000. A lot of the times the state dollars don't get to us in the beginning of the year. They come like sporadically throughout. So once we knew we had this school safety grant, then we reallocated out of the mill dollars, and we used the school safety grant for security cameras. You'll see we moved some elementary, we're upgrading all of our security cameras in our schools to a Vigilon, and upgrading those cameras. They have to constantly be touched from a technology perspective and upgraded. And if those fund sources become available that free up the mill for us to do other safety projects, that allowed us to bring in actually another school for the intercom panic alarm alert and systems. So we'll be able to bring more in and get more done this year with those dollars.
So I think we talked about the bond funds before.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to have a conversation. I think there'll be a future workshop. The superintendent's going to have that. Our team has met with business services, and Dr. Legutko's meeting with Ford and Associates. I believe Ford and Associates is going to come in, I believe, in January at some point and have a conversation about what we need to do to look at the classroom additions at Lake Asbury Junior and Oakleaf Junior this year, and then for an August 25 opening. So not this year, but a year from now. That's how long the cycle's taking, not just, it's about a 4-month cycle to get the funds, and then it's about a 12 to 14-month process to build those and open on time. We've already started with architecture, because you've already approved those projects in the EFP. We've started with architectural services and design. Y'all approved the classroom addition designs from Paul Stressing and Associates. We've been working with them on Lake Asbury and Oakleaf. So thankfully, that process is underway. We'll go through the process of bonding per your approval for those 2 projects to meet growth and portable reduction.
Okay, so, yeah, I just wanted to highlight that we're talking about portable replacement.
Yes.
Right, portable
People
reduction.
aren't hearing that, and I want to make
Yes.
sure that's what we're.
Chip away at it.
Also, just to note, we had originally, in the tentative EFP, we had originally, you'll see that we had targeted $55 million for a potential certificate. We've reduced that to $36 million because we want to do the classroom edition 3 and 4 right out, and Lake Asbury Elementary, we want to be able to do those debt-free. So by saving specific types of money, impact fees, by saving those dollars, we can do those two projects debt-free. We could reduce the debt service on the classroom additions for Oakleaf and Lake Asbury Junior. By doing that, we could hopefully buy some time to save as much as we can to reduce our debt service that's going to be needed for our new high school in 2030. It's going to be probably $160 million high school in 2030, and that's a lot to take on. So we're working as diligently as we can to minimize debt service.
I have a question. Why are we replacing generators or maybe it's just this, is it just like a prediction or something?
Where do you see?
I guess
Which
it's
one?
Thunderbolt. Generator replacement for next year will be 400,000 and then, hold on, I can't see.
We're
And then again, oh wait, no, that's 5-year total, ignore me.
Okay.
Ignore me, I thought that it was. I forgot.
Yeah, there's a 5-year total.
5-year total, sorry, I thought that was
after the-
another year.
Yeah. after
I'm
the-
like, why are we doing that every 4 years?
No,
And
no.
there's nothing wrong with it.
So there's a lot on there. So if you like see something or see a certain school or whatever, we'll be glad to answer those questions if
That
something
just
pops up
jumped out
and
at me.
we get it, they're required to bring that.
And Ms. Brodsky, I will say, I mean, I've seen a lot of the EFPs across the state, and we're one of the only ones that really truly break it down by school, absolutely by school, by the year. So when you go down and it starts getting alphabetical by high school, junior high, and elementary schools, you can see these specific projects listed for that year. A lot of districts just list all the schools, a project that's associated, and list all the schools, but we try to be as detailed as we can to execute those projects. Because trust me, principals do look at these, and when they see something, they think it's happening. So we rather
Or if they don't see something.
That's right. We would rather have less projects and be able to bring projects in than have too many projects and not be able to fund them in the year they think they're going to be funded.
But you can go on their website, on the Florida DOE's website, and they have all the counties, if you were at all curious to see what other counties submit to the state.
And we did include the funding source, Mr. Brodsky. That was asked, I think y'all wanted to see the.
Well, yeah, that's why
funding source.
a lot of counties don't have all of the funding sources we have. So it's important that we are very specific about how we are spending taxpayer dollars.
Exactly.
And so it is not always reflected in other counties. They might not have a half-cent sales tax. They may not have an extra 1% mill. Some counties have none of that. Some counties have more than we have. So I'm just glad it reflects the amount of money that the taxpayers have given us to do these things. So.
And that last column does reflect the actual fund source that's targeted for that project. And sometimes there's multiple fund sources associated with the project. But Ms. Hanson is correct in that to be able to identify that up front. It also helps with you working with your constituents to help them understand that certain fund sources can only be used for certain things. I think sometimes they think we have this one big pot of money and we can use it for whatever we want. That's not the case. We have so many restrictions on these dollars, and they can only be used for certain projects, certain funds, and within a certain time frame, like impact fee. We have 5 years to use this year's impact fees, and if we don't use them for the reasons we're supposed to, we have to give them back. So we don't give money back.
Next is pre-qualifications of contractors. That's a standard item. Then you have the change order for Lakeside Junior High restroom renovations. Middleburg High's cafeteria expansion. And the last one is, again, Lakeside Junior High's final completion. And that completes the agenda, Madam Chair.
All right. We have no questions from the audience. Do you have any further comments, Mr. Superintendent?
No, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Please take time with your families, enjoy it. I know Sue and I are going to. I wish everyone a Merry Christmas.
Mr. Blocker, is there anything from you?
Yes, just very briefly, I think I've updated each of y'all individually, but we're moving forward with our negotiations with the Sheriff's Department. We've submitted to them our first draft of the contract. Their attorney is reviewing that. I'm in discussions with the county attorney as well as how we need to handle the property transfer, which Bryce and I were emailing about, that we'll talk a little bit more. There's a state statute that controls that. Allows the board to either donate or sell these items, so we'll fine tune those details. Hopefully we'll be on track depending on the county's involvement. Hopefully by February have this contract back for y'all for board approval, for final approval, so we can move forward.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Blocker? Did you have something else?
I was just saying, hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas. So, thank you.
School board member comments. Who'd like to begin? Anybody know? Ms. Hanson?
I'll be happy to, sorry. Ms.
No,
Hanson.
I'd be happy for you to go first.
I just, echoing everyone else's wishes, best wishes for Christmas. It was a happy Hanukkah for many, I know, and I can't say enough to teachers. Enjoy the holiday, and administrators and everyone, take time for yourselves, please. It's incredibly important. Yesterday I was at Shadow Lawn Elementary and experienced my first fire drill that I have done in years. I mean, usually when I go to a school, it doesn't happen at that particular time because it's a planned event that they've sort of thought about. Very impressive. It was truly by the book, standing in the classroom as the fire alarm was going off, door is not open, and patiently waiting for it is now time to step outside call from the office, done to perfection, and made me a little sad that we have to do that. But it is what it is. We have the timing of our lives right now where we do have to be incredibly cautious with our children, and it was great to see that we are. It was done beautifully and very quickly, rapidly. Once we were out there, everything was fine, and we turned around and walked right back in. Good visits to schools, spelling bees coming up, all sorts of activities coming up in January that we're looking forward to. So rest up now and ready to roll in the new year. Your turn.
Thanks. Well, I can tell you a time when we really used to practice fire alarms like we are now. When Oak Leaf High School first opened, we had a real fire alarm. 3 stories, everybody's going downstairs, it's quite dramatic. And everybody's getting their kids out there, and we're standing out in the practice football field, and the sprinklers went off. This is how you know, and the kids all dispersing, screaming and yelling. I mean, it was cold, the sprinklers, and we're trying to hold them, hold, like you're in a war zone or something, sprinklers. But the only other thing on my mind, I did go to Wilkinson. I have to always go to Wilkinson Elementary. If you ever get a chance to go watch their chorus, I have never in my life witnessed small children sing at the top of their lungs like they were on a Broadway show. Their arms, their voices, their face, the pure joy that comes from that school when they sing it's just above and beyond when I go watch most schools sing. To include the fact that it was not under the stars that night, it was raining, and the faculty, I pretty much think the entire faculty stayed and moved all 10,000 of them decorations and lights inside for us. The last thing that was on my mind, and it's kind of like a heads up, maybe we could have a conversation about this. My focus I just wanted to say 2023, once again, I say this probably all the time, will be on improving reading so that we can maybe become a county, a leader, that more like 70% of our kids are on grade level. It's very ambitious. And my second focus for 2023 is to make sure, and I talked to Dr. Legucco about this pretty much all year, and we never started it. Sometimes we have that habit of saying something and not following through. But along with Dr. Legucco and technology is bringing our budget transparent, like state law says it should be, in the fact that it's easy to be understood by constituents, posted under the school board where it should be, since it is technically our budget, and easier access to that budget so people can click on things. I had given an example of Duval, who does an excellent job with their, if you go and look, you'll just see the calculators they have, where you have it on paper, they can click and see everything at their school, their child's school, and when it will be done. And on that note also, I will need some help, Dr. Legucco, more likely from you first, but I would like to see a separation of sorts, maybe into its own fund, of the 1% mill for transparency. So when we spend something from the 1% mill, our constituents can see it come from the 1% mill. There's many people that would be grateful to give us that 1% mill again. The common theme is, what are they doing with it? So I think if we had, especially when the separation of the sheriff now, right, from our monies, if we had it in its own separate pot, where everybody can see where the money's coming from, the budget to the sheriff, what we spend that money on, would be very transparent and easy for people to see. A lot of our times is we're just not communicating in a way that people can understand it, so you'll hear things that we may sit here and say, well, that's ridiculous, or, oh, they just don't understand this or that. I believe in 2024, we need to make it easy enough so they understand it. That's our job. They need to understand what we're doing with their money. It needs to hit them in the face. It needs to be easy to see, easy to find, and if it was in its own, I don't know what you would call it, a fund or budget line, that's not, but if it was by itself somewhere where we can see how much we're paying the sheriff, the upfront money for October's, exactly how it's going, it would be a lot better for everyone and easier to understand the budget. And so that is something I would like to see happen. I just wanted to mention it now because it's a short meeting and I'm done.
All right, Ms. Skipper?
Merry Christmas from time to your loved ones.
Ms. Clark?
Merry Christmas, and may we pray for 2024.
So I wanted to talk with you guys about committee assignments. I had a couple of responses based on my request from our regular board meeting. I sent out, I realized I should have done it sooner, and thank you, Ms. Honora, for giving it to me, the current committee assignments, so that if you need to remember what you're on or what somebody else is on, you have that to look at. I'd like to finalize what we're going to do by January. So if you want to take a little bit of time, look at the assignments that are available, let me know if there's any. I know, Ms. Skipper, you said you wanted to be on the foundation, and I know Ms. Bola's been on it for a couple of years, so that's an easy swap. And then we had two board members that both really feel like they need to be at Orange Park High School for graduation. So I was wondering if we could, instead of having a board member and a district staff person at Orange Park High, have two board members?
Absolutely.
Okay, and that way they can both be there. So that takes
a
care
simple list out on committees
I
already.
did, yes, the current list that we're currently operating under.
Okay.
So if you want to look over that, let me know if there's any. I just sent it this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, I just sent it this morning. So just look over that and give me any feedback, and then at January's meeting, we'll finalize everything, if that's.
Perfect.
So if we have an idea for maybe a new committee or updated committee,
Sure, bring it.
all of that, just kind of get those ideas together for January? Okay.
All right. So I think that's all the business items I had. There are chocolate chip cookies and chocolate covered peanut butter balls in the back that I made for everybody to enjoy, just to wish you all a Merry Christmas. I thought about individually wrapping them and giving them out, but then I'm like forcing the calories on you, so this way it's up to you if you want to take them. But I wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas and thank you for all that you do in serving our county every day. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.